can, as a therapist, one of the most beautiful things is that you can sit with somebody's pain, with somebody's wound, with some of the most painful and horrible things that you could ever imagine happening to a human being. And you can also help create like a glimmer of hope in healing and recovery. And when somebody is able to really see that there is hope and that there is hope for recovery and healing, it is a beautiful thing to be able to see that, like that grow and that light shine, and to be able to see them from being in a place of a victimhood into then a survivor and then a thriver. And I have had the privilege of working with some people for years. I think I worked with a client for 5 years, and I saw them from the moment they came in to the shelter to them having their own place, thriving, wanting to start their own business. And it's just to be part of that journey is such a privilege for me.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Lived Experiences. I'm your host, Dr. Tamia Ryan, and today I am joined by Rosa Casquino, who is a bilingual Latina licensed clinical social worker and trauma therapist whose personal and professional journeys intersect in powerful ways. Rosa was born in Peru and is now practicing in the United States. She specializes in working with adult survivors, those with complex trauma, and has a particular focus on the BIPOC communities. I'm really excited to have you here today, Rosa, to talk about
Thank you.
culturally sensitive care, how we can integrate that into our work. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Tamia. Thank you. I am so excited to be here. It's been really nice to meet you and just to be part of a space within the BIPOC community. And that's really, really important for me. And I think, as we touched on earlier, we're seeing that that's being diminished, and so it's so important to make sure that we're connecting and creating those opportunities for individuals.
Yes, thank you so much for being on. I love to just get started and kind of jump
Yes.
right in and ask people to share a little bit about your journey. And I'd love to
Yeah.
hear about your journey from Peru to becoming a licensed clinical social worker and being a trauma therapist in the United States.
Yeah. Well, I came here when I was two. So I was brought over when I was 2 years old. And I went most of my life actually undocumented, living undocumented. I didn't gain residency until I was about 18. And that's kind of where then I eventually went back to school after having my kids and being married. And then exploring what it would look like to be a first generation Latina that has a college education within my family. So I grew up in an environment that not only faced different challenges because of immigration status, but also because of domestic violence, alcohol use, and throughout my own childhood into adolescence, something that I really wanted to do was support other children that were going through what I was going through at home. So I had a dream as a kid to become a child psychologist so that I can support other kids that were experiencing the things that I was experiencing in my own home. And as I got older and I had children, I have a son that has autism. And so then I wanted to work in a social setting where I could support families with autism. And so this has just been my journey to eventually becoming a social worker. Right? And then in college, I met a professor that was an LCSW and was doing therapy. And I love the stories that he was sharing. And I'm like, that's what I want to do. So eventually, that's where my journey took me into getting an MSW. And then my internships took me to doing some trauma therapy when I interned at a domestic violence shelter. And I was exposed to so much pain, but also so much beauty in recovery and in healing. So it helped me heal my own wounds from growing up in that environment to understanding the why and the complexities of domestic violence. And then interacting with a lot of typically women that had not only come here as immigrants and were experiencing domestic violence, but also a history of sexual abuse, which has now become my area of focus. I work with adult survivors of childhood sexual trauma, and I also provide education on that, any speaking opportunities and trainings on how to provide culturally sensitive care to survivors of sexual trauma.
Thank you for sharing that. I always love to connect with fellow social workers, so I'm excited. I'm
Yes,
trying to hold it
yes.
in. And you touched on just a really important point that resonated with me.
Hmm.
You talked about, there is this ugly side of trauma,
Hmm.
of abuse,
Hmm.
but then there is this beautiful side of really
Hmm.
emerging through that recovery
Yes.
process. Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit more about that?
Yes. Well, coming into this field, it they don't really teach. I think in social work we're taught a lot of like advocacy and that we can be an agent of change and working more in a social service setting. And when diving into more of therapy work and being exposed to deep, deep stories of pain created such a level of empathy for me and hearing very similar experiences, unfortunately, of pain, but also of triumph, right? You can, as a therapist, one of the most beautiful things is that you can sit with somebody's pain, with somebody's wound, with some of the most painful and horrible things that you could ever imagine happening to a human being. And you can also help create like a glimmer of hope in healing and recovery. And when somebody is able to really see that there is hope and that there is hope for recovery and healing, it is a beautiful thing to be able to see that like that grow and that light shine and to be able to see them from being in a place of a victimhood into then a survivor and then a thriver. And I
Mhm.
have had the privilege of working with some people for years. I think I worked with a client for 5 years, and I saw them from the moment they came in to the shelter to them having their own place, thriving, wanting to start their own business. And it's just to be part of that journey is such a privilege for me. And I still consider it a privilege up until this day to be part of that journey with individuals.
Yes, and I know in your work that you see a lot of generational
Hmm.
cycles of
Mm, mm,
silence, of shame,
yes,
particularly in BIPOC communities. What
yes.
cultural factors have you observed in your work?
I mean, definitely culture, gender roles. We're looking at religious influences. We're looking, in particularly in Latino culture, we're looking a lot with feminismo, like that the family is the most important part of it. And we see that throughout so many different cultures, not just Latinx, right? There is, machismo, the way that men should behave, women should behave, and all that. We can hear those as terms, and we've primarily heard those as terms like throughout time, but to be able to see the whole impact that that has, again, as social workers, I'm going to continue to say that probably and annoy people with that, but we're taught to look at the person and environment, right? So we're
Mhm.
looking at the person, but we're looking at everything else that has influenced them and has created like the why for right now in their
Right.
life. And so seeing that play out, seeing how mental health is stigmatized even in Latinx and different BIPOC communities. I've had clients tell me like, "Oh, if I ever told my sister that I was in therapy, she would laugh,"
Right.
or I don't tell anybody that I'm in therapy because they're going to think I'm crazy, or and those are the things that I hear from a variety of different clients. So I have to take that into account, right, when I'm talking to them and when we're educating and helping them heal and saying, "Okay, you can be the first one of your family to break those cycles and then plant the seeds for
Mhm.
change," right? We don't have to get everybody on board right now, but you first, and then that will spread to everyone else, with your children and generations to come. And you can then give that back into your family also.
Yes, and
Hmm.
just I love what you're saying because a lot of the work that I have done in just
Hmm.
my span of clinical work, but also in the
Hmm.
coaching space, has been
Yes.
trying to help people take control of their stories and their narratives and not feeling
Yeah.
like those generational stories, while they are a part of us, and
Hmm.
often they can be inspiring and offer healing,
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
doesn't have to be your exact story, and helping people
Yes.
understand that and understand that that cycle can be broken or can be changed, right? Or can be altered. So I love your take on that.
Well, in particular, when we take into account like epigenetics, right, and
Yes.
handing down those traumas, inherited traumas, and so we're looking
Hmm.
at generations of even colonization and how they're impacting are the people that we serve now,
Yes.
right,
Yes.
and to let them understand like, hey, like what you're holding on to is not just from the present moment, it's from the past, and how do we work through so that you're able to heal and then surrender that,
Yes.
right,
Yes.
and to where it belongs.
Yes. And
Yeah.
you mentioned, just the systemic issues that are present, right? Like we can do
Hmm.
all of this work individually, but like if
Hmm.
huge barriers are still,
Hmm.
existing within
Yes.
the systems, how do you fight up against that? Because I'm sure you encounter that
Mm.
in your work.
That has been really tough, and I think those are one of the reasons why I ended up leaving community mental health and in a nonprofit sector and shifting into private practice because I saw that continuously and seeing how so many different systems have impacted the clients that that I have worked with and that you've probably worked with, right? A
Mhm.
lot of underserved communities, and at times. I think at a time when I first started, it felt like it was really helpful. And then eventually, the more that I grew in this field and the higher up that I went in certain agencies and in systems and understanding deeper what the funders wanted, what the funders needed, I saw that it wasn't working in the way that I had idealized it when I was a new graduate,
Right. Yeah.
right? And
Hmm.
the problems that's causing for a lot of the people that we're trying to serve.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can recall being, in, in grad school and learning about
Yeah.
macro practice, and we're
Yes.
gonna go in and we're gonna,
Yeah, we're gonna change it all. Yes.
knock
Yeah,
down
we are
these
told that
walls.
we're agents of change. And I
Right.
do believe that. And I think that we can have that in different ways. For me,
Hmm.
it's in a micro and planting the seeds, and then in a meso and being able to educate different organizations,
Yeah.
communities, and people. Just like even in this space, we're gonna get an opportunity to educate other people and plant seeds.
Yes, the
Hmm.
educational piece I think is so important and
Yeah.
such a way to impact, larger audiences.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
know in the work that you do, you also do psychological immigration evaluations,
Hmm.
which include hardship waivers, U visas. And for listeners who might be unfamiliar with that, can you talk a little bit about why these evaluations are so important and what they involve?
Yes. And so psychological evaluations are a very like thorough psychological assessment of an individual that is currently petitioning for permanent residency in the United States within certain visas qualifications. And the reason they're important is because those particular visas and need an actual demonstration of psychological impact. So there has to be a psychological impact in order to be able to qualify. So for example, in hardship waivers, I have to demonstrate that the US citizen would be emotionally, mentally, even financially impacted by their loved one being deported. Right. In AVAWA, which is VAWA is the one that I have the most experience on. It's the Violence Against Women's Act. I actually began to do them when I used to work at a shelter. And that is to help survivors of domestic violence and abuse be able to gain again permanent residency by demonstrating the emotional impact, psychological impact that the abuse that they endured from a resident of the United States had on them. So it's a pathway to citizenship, but I have to demonstrate the emotional, psychological impact that this abuse or the crime may have had on them.
Mm.
Yeah.
And that
And
is
they're
such
important to demonstrate. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, go
Yes.
ahead.
Yeah. No, and it's important. I believe it's an important part of their process because it demonstrates like, yes, I have been victimized and I have been emotionally hurt, but I still want to be able to have an opportunity to thrive in the United States.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just going back a little bit to
Hmm.
your connection with
Hmm.
trauma,
Yeah.
as both a survivor and now a therapist, how
Mm-hmm.
would you say that your personal experience has informed your work in working with trauma survivors?
Oh, yeah. And I mean that's really a key part of the work that I do because I'm a survivor of domestic violence, but also a survivor of sexual trauma. And so
Mm,
that helps me understand and connect with my clients in a way that I don't know if somebody else that doesn't have that experience, direct experience, is able to. And I think that brings my clients such a great comfort level of comfort in knowing that, hey, like she really understands me. She understands
mhm.
what it is like to feel this way, to experience these things, to also go on a healing journey. Because it has been a journey for me as well to be able to get to a place where of safety and security and confidence within myself and within my life and in my relationships. So that's what has led me to do the work that I do. And that's what continues to keep me in this work because I feel so strongly about being able to heal and recover and repair from these types of abuse that I want to be able to give people the opportunity to experience the same type of healing and joy in life that I am now able to experience.
Yes, yes, to be on
Mhm.
that other side of it.
Yes, yes,
And trauma work is difficult. It's not for everyone.
yeah.
And self-care, we hear a lot about it,
Hmm.
especially in the field and
Hmm.
social
Yes,
work. We talk about self-care, right?
yeah.
But how do you really integrate it into your life? Because you're doing heavy work as well
Hmm.
as
Yeah.
protecting yourself.
Yes. Well, it's really been a learning experience. And I think when I first started doing this work, the first probably 2 years, I probably cried all the time. And I really
Hmm.
struggled to how to figure out how to balance that work-life balance and to set like those really healthy boundaries. And then after that, like slowly, progressively, like every year, it's been easier for me to say, this is not mine. Right.
Right.
So I am a spiritual person more than a faith-based person. And so for me, this is their pain, my client's pain is not my burden to carry. I can hold space for them, but at the end of the day, I just give it up to source. Like,
Hmm.
whoever source is for people, it's like I give it up to source. Say, this is not mine. This is yours to help carry for this individual, right? I'm
Right.
here to support. I'm here to provide guidance and hear this person, but it isn't mine. So that being able to really accept that and say this isn't mine has been such a huge game changer for me, and not having to carry this because this is not mine to carry. And
Yeah.
also making sure that I create that space of turning my brain on from like therapist to then just me, to Rosa, right? And being able to make sure I take vacations, I eat, I sleep. All of those things are really important.
Yes.
Move your body, all the things that we talk about in self-care, they're also important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Take your breaks, people. Everybody
Yes.
take a lunch.
Yes.
That's something I've been doing. Like I've been consistent, just making sure I get my little quick, even if it's a micro break, just get up,
Mm-hmm.
move around, do
Yes.
something,
Yeah.
especially in doing this work. Um,
Absolutely.
in doing this work, especially lately, we've heard a lot of controversy
Mm-hmm.
about diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had conversations with people about
Mm-hmm.
diversity, and they said, well, you got so many black people here, you got so many this here, you got, it is diverse. And I always have this conversation about diversity does not equal
Mm-hmm.
equity and inclusion. Can you
Yes.
talk a little bit about what you would like therapists to understand about really
Mm.
having an inclusive environment?
Well, I think that part of it is understanding what your own privilege is, right? Whether even, I know that I have privilege because I present in a particular way, and through because of education and where I am at, possibly financially. So understanding that, understanding that even though some of us may look like our clients, doesn't mean that we understand all their experiences also, right?
Hmm.
It's up to the individual to tell us their story and to understand that just because we may not ourselves be racist or or anti-LGBTQIA, that doesn't mean that our clients haven't had those experiences, right? Maybe we haven't experienced it. Like I can say for myself that I have not, like I'm blessed that I've never experienced direct racism. I know that there's been like overt and
Hmm.
oppression systemically. I get that. But when a client shares that experience, I have to let them share their experience and not know like, hey, like maybe I haven't experienced that directly and I know you have, and that's true and valid for you. So knowing that clients' experiences are all true and valid for them, even if we ourselves have never experienced it, and to be able to hold space for that, even if it's uncomfortable for you.
Yes, and just acknowledging the differences and being
Hmm.
okay with that, moving
Yes.
away from the I'm colorblind. Well, let's not
Yeah.
be colorblind. Let's embrace
Yes.
our unique differences. And the
Yes.
work you're doing is really bringing that to the forefront, and it's
Hmm.
so needed. And like you said, that
Yeah.
educational piece is
Hmm.
vital. I'd love to shift to talk a little bit about your personal work that you're doing, and you
Yes. Yeah.
allow the audience to hear about your practice and how
Yes.
they can reach you and contact you and
Oh,
work
thank
with
you.
you.
Yes. Yes. Well, I have a practice in Pasadena, California. I'm licensed in both the state of California and Nevada, so I offer virtual individual therapy. I work with adults, not children, and not real couple, and not couples, so mostly with adults one-on-one. And I love both virtual and in-person work. I focus mostly on survivors of sexual trauma, domestic violence, and narcissistic abuse, and also have had the privilege of being able to work with like first responders, people in the industry, people that are entrepreneurs, and I really love supporting all types of individuals in my practice. I also provide immigration evaluations and incorporate the use of actual ketamine into practice. So I do psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy. So we're able to use it as a tool to help in that healing process, especially when individuals are stuck and are having trouble being able to move forward. And I'm also now doing like speaking engagements and trainings for nonprofits and corporations, anybody that is interested in being able to expand and understand how supporting individuals who are survivors of sexual trauma within their nonprofit, or just to be able to support their employees who are struggling with any type of mental health issues or trauma or anything that may happen in the workplace that can create a really difficult environment. So that's now what I'm doing, and I also provide education through social media, TikToks, and my website. I have some free resources available there also.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we'll have your website and information
Yes.
available down in the
Thank you.
podcast description so people can check
Thank
you
you.
out and follow you. Is there
Thank you.
anything you would like to share with one individuals who may be at that point where they are feeling stuck and feeling scared to really talk about
Mm-hmm.
their trauma because sometimes
Yeah.
we just are so comfortable just moving on, saying we're okay.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
encouragement or words would you give to individuals that are experiencing that?
I think that is such a normal place to be at, especially when you're in that pre-contemplation stage of, thinking about, should I, am I ready to do this? Right? Am I ready to open up to somebody about what I've been through? And to know that it's okay to be in that place. And that if you reach out for support, that it's going to be there, and that you have a right to, as you're looking for the right clinician for you, you have the right to shop around, you have the
Mhm.
right to do free consults, engage that person, you have the right to ask all the questions that you want within the 15 or 20 minutes that they may offer,
Yeah.
and be able to see who you resonate and who you connect with, right? At the end of the day, you're the person who is choosing to go on this journey, and it's important to find the person that is going to be the right fit for you as you move forward. And yes, it's scary. And that's why, clinicians are here to support you through this. Right.
Mhm.
We are, we develop the skills to be able to support people through these journeys. And we know how to hold space in those really, really difficult moments. And you probably will share things with us that you've never shared with anybody. And to know that at least I believe, and so many clinicians that I know believe, that it is a huge privilege to be able to be that one that you're sharing that story with.
Yes, yes. And I appreciate the point
Yeah.
you said about asking your therapist questions.
Hmm.
Sometimes, there is that feeling of, well, I can't ask questions. It's my therapist. I just have to
Yes.
stick with who I've
Yeah.
been assigned
Yeah.
to or
Yeah.
who I've connected to.
Yes. Yeah.
It's okay to ask those questions, and
Yeah.
just the beauty of having so many diverse clinicians now, and
Yes.
representatives like you being on today and,
Yeah.
talking
Yes.
to us. I'm
Yes.
hoping that someone will watch today and say, you know what, there's somebody who looks like me, who maybe has similar
Yes.
experiences, or not,
Yeah.
maybe different experiences, but just to be able to
Hmm.
have that shared lived experience
Yes.
often can bring people in
Absolutely.
that may feel a
Yeah.
little hesitant at first. So
Yes.
I really just thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to
Thank
be
you.
here today to talk with the audience today and just provide a little bit about yourself, but also hope for
Yes.
individuals who may feel like they're stuck or who may be experiencing trauma. Are there any last words that you'd like to share with the listeners before we sign off?
Yeah, healing can be a difficult journey, but it's so worth it. Yeah, there's somebody out there for you to be able to support you through this journey. And so just know that there are people that care and want to be with you and walk this path with you through your own journey.
Thank you so much for that
Yeah,
encouragement and positive
yeah.
words. And audience, we will be back in a couple of weeks. So please feel free to rewind this episode, listen, get that encouragement to help you, especially if you're in a place where you need to heal or want to heal. And we'll see you back
Yes.
soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.